Hello and welcome to your daily briefing. In today's video, we're going to start by discussing the most current events regarding stimulus negotiations, and then we're going to discuss executive orders and the president's potential future solution to stimulus, and of course, relief for the people who need it most. So hit that like button and let's get into the news. Right now, we're in the middle of a frustrating stalemate between Democratic and Republican negotiators. Negotiations fell apart like a poorly made Subway sandwich a few weeks ago, with the major point of contention being the total package size. Democrats want a huge comprehensive package that addresses everything from mail-in voting to stimulus checks. While Republicans, their ideal package size is more modest, containing only the issues they feel need the most attention. Things like enhanced unemployment, a second round of paycheck protection, funding for schools and virus testing, a second stimulus check, and a few other items. The difference in total cost is about $1 trillion versus around $3.5 trillion. So there's a huge difference here. At this point, the general feeling with negotiations is it matters more to legislators who wins the negotiations instead of who they are actually helping, what good they can actually do. They care more about getting that win, getting their name on some legislation. This is pretty obvious when we look at the fact that most issues are actually pretty bipartisan. Both sides want stimulus checks, paycheck protection, school funding, and much more. And here's a quote from the White House Chief of Staff on this topic. He says, "I think that we can come up with an agreement on stimulus checks to Americans and enhance unemployment. Those issues are not as divisive as we might think." So this was said after Meadows offered a large amount of criticism towards Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party. He criticized them for getting together and rushing a rare Saturday vote to address issues with the post office. And just for reference here, let's take just a quick sidebar and explain what exactly is going on there. The House passed a $25 billion bill on Saturday that gives the post office more funding and disallows them from disrupting or changing any postal service. Now, this came after Postmaster General Louis DeJoy announced last week that he would suspend any cost-cutting measures until after the elections. And this was after he and the president were told they were purposefully disrupting elections. So he was like, hey, I'm not going to disrupt anything. We will postpone these changes after receiving all that criticism. Who knows what their intentions were? This is just the facts that we do know. The House believes that this was a major issue because we'll have more mail-in voters than ever due to the pandemic. Now, going back to the House being criticized for their decisions, on this, Mitch McConnell had a tweet. He said, "House Democrats have spent weeks ignoring the urgent needs of American workers and families, but they rush back to Washington the instant that overblown conspiracy theories about the U.S. Postal Service convince them their own jobs might be in jeopardy." Now, I suspect many House members actually agree with this sentiment from McConnell because remember, last week more than 100 House members wrote a letter to leadership asking for a vote on enhanced unemployment as well as the post office. However, this was shot down because Pelosi felt it would not be a good move for negotiations on a total comprehensive stimulus package. You'll notice the latest news today is very critical of Democrats, but hopefully you'll also notice that I am very careful to not place my opinions on these criticisms. However, to balance things out, and because I don't feel anyone is innocent in these stimulus negotiations, let's recap the criticisms Democrats have on Republicans as well. Pelosi and top Democrats feel if a small bill is passed, Republicans will refuse to work on any additional aid. Now, this is why they refuse to pass any kind of skinny bill. Now, let's say a skinny bill includes unemployment, school funding, a stimulus check, and paycheck protection, a second round, but doesn't include state and local government funding. Democrats are worried Republicans would never pass that additional funding after getting the funding for the things that they think are most important. And Democrats are critical of Republicans who waited months to begin negotiations on a package that should have been negotiated back in May when the HEROES Act was passed in the House. So now that we're all caught up on the latest news in the House and the Senate, let's talk about how this relates to the Trump administration and executive orders. President Trump passed those 4 executive orders just over 2 weeks ago. Those orders addressed enhanced unemployment, student loans, and then kind of addressed payroll taxes and kind of addressed rent assistance. It has been thought that the president used these orders to help spark a fire in stimulus negotiations while things were at a standstill. However, it could be argued that it actually might have had the opposite effect to those stimulus negotiations. The area that needed a solution the fastest was enhanced unemployment. It was already expired and Congress had a huge amount of pressure to figure something out. Then Trump signed in his order giving people $300 or $400 a week as a solution, depending on the state that you live in. But experts say this is only going to last 4 to 5 weeks, so it's a very temporary solution. However, instead of Congress fighting to find a better solution in the meantime, they decided to head back to their recesses, enjoy the 4 to 5 week window, and then worry about a fix later, ultimately making things much, much worse. So now we're in a place where the only action that is actually happening is through this odd, unilateral, legal gray area known as executive orders. And if Congress doesn't figure something out quickly, we might be looking at much more of this. Now let's go back to Mark Meadows on this topic. After talking about the areas Congress generally has agreements on, he talks about how administration hasn't ruled out the possibility of additional executive action if Congress can't get it together. And here is his quote on this. He says, "Listen, we're always looking at options that we can deploy from 1600 Pennsylvania Ave. Never underestimate the dysfunction of Congress and never underestimate the ability of this president to try and figure out a way to meet the needs of the American people." At this point, I'm really not even sure what is and isn't possible here with executive orders. Trump's unemployment fix worked as an order because he used disaster relief funds, but it isn't clear how he would keep funding programs like a stimulus check or other things. Could he just decide to send stimulus checks to everyone? 1 month ago, I would flat out have said no, but today I would say maybe. In one sense, I have to appreciate the Trump administration looking to find solutions to help the American people. But in the other sense, it's a scary thought if we slowly transition to a place where the president can make any law or fund any project he feels like. There is a system of checks and balances for a reason. Yes, Congress could pass a bill blocking any order the president made, but it's still a scary thought nevertheless. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Do you care if Trump signs more orders allowing for more stimulus, or do you think it's better to wait for Congress to work their negotiations out in order to not set this example where the president can do whatever he pleases? Let me know in the comments and let's chat about this a little bit. Anyways, this is all I have for today. Check out the link in my description for Webull so you can receive 2 completely free stocks. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a profitable day.